right, welcome back. This is the Built by Vitality podcast. As always, I am Steve Pinkerton, sitting next to
Philip Lewis.
And today we are going to have a conversation about should you be chasing retirement? It's an interesting question, a tough question, because there's a lot to think about. And most people, maybe you're not even thinking about retirement. And I'll talk about that. Or maybe you think about retirement all the time. And I think that it's not so black and white, but I want to talk to Philip about some things I would think you need to consider when you're thinking about retirement or not thinking about retirement. If you're not thinking about it, I think you should, and vice versa. So what's retirement? Let me tell you what the definition is, and let me see what your definition, if you agree with it or whatever. It's the action of leaving one's job or ceasing to work. Do you agree with that? I mean, in your mind, is that what? Okay. So what do you think when you hear retirement?
When I say retirement, you can just do whatever you want to do. If you still want to work, you can, but it's something you want to do. So like if I'm 80, but I'm still going somewhere and taking some videos and editing them, taking pictures, whatever, it's because I wanted to do it. It's not because somebody made me do it.
You're working because you want to work, not because you have to work. Yeah, I think I like that definition that we just talked about. Mine that I had before this was I liked it, the action of working under the terms that you set, not someone else sets. So you're not at work from 8 to 5 because I tell you to be at work from 8 to 5. You're working from 8 to 5 because you want to be there from 8 to 5. So you set those conditions. And for those people that are counting down the weeks or months or years to retirement, maybe you're in the wrong occupation.
Yeah.
People need to think about that too.
You feel like, God, only 10 more years.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you shouldn't be doing that anymore. Maybe if it's all you think about.
And people would be like, well, I'm halfway to my retirement or I'm 2/3 of my retirement. Yeah, but
you're miserable.
What's it worth to you? What's happiness? People don't put a price on happiness.
Just think 10 more years of being under that stress. How are you going to feel in 10 more years when you actually get to retire? You're going to have all these medical problems and be stressed out and can't enjoy it?
Yeah. And what's the hurry? I mean, if you love what you do, what's the hurry?
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing. And here's when I think it's okay. Maybe you're 5 years from retirement and you're super excited about it. But you're excited about it because you know what the next step is for you. And your next step is you want to travel, you want to start a new hobby, you want to buy an RV and go see all the grandkids and travel the country. That's cool. Like that is a reason to be excited about retirement. Doesn't mean you don't love your job. It just means that you have something else that you really want to do that's going to make you happy.
Yeah.
But if you have no plan, where's the fire? Why hurry up and, you hate your day-to-day life so much you can't wait to be done? I would argue that retirement won't be much better than what you are experiencing right now, because what you obviously have chosen an occupation that you don't enjoy, that doesn't make you happy, and you've done that job for 25, 30 years. So now, with really no experience of being happy, you've got no experience being happy.
Yeah.
You've been miserable for 25, 30 years.
They were happy when they first got it, and then after a year or so, and they set in, they're like, this is, and then they to get used to it, and it's miserable the rest of the time.
So, let me think through an analogy before I say it, but that's like, to me, that's like gambling on blackjack for 25 or 30 years and losing every hand. And thinking that you have no experience in losing, but you're going to go to a different table and start winning right away. So wait a second. You retire, you have no experience on what it's like to be happy, but now you're going to figure it out?
Yeah, now you're going to be happy.
If you could figure it out, if it was that easy, you would have changed the conditions before. And I think that you're so conditioned to be unhappy that you don't even realize really how miserable you are. You've just accepted the fact that that's normal. So your normal, the baseline that you've set for yourself, like let's say your baseline is up here. That's like, hey, I'm happy. Someone else that's been miserable for 25, 30 years, this is their baseline. This is what they think is happy. This to you is miserable.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to be there. You're up here. But they've just become so comfortable down here.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. So when they find something else that gets them right to here or a little bit above it, you're still looking at this like, dude,
Man, that's
no
terrible.
way.
Yeah.
They're looking at it like, it's a little bit better. But guess what's going to happen after 2 years? They're going to be miserable.
Again.
And now, instead of being 45 and able to change that baseline, now they're 75. They're limited by their health. They're limited by their mobility. They're limited by their finances. They don't have the freedom to try and adjust this as much. So up here in the beginning, you've got all this room to go up and down. You got all this room to change your baseline because you've got time. You can take more risks. You can take more chances.
You might not have kids. You might not be married.
Yeah.
You can do whatever. Yeah.
But now you're down here and your ability to change the needle is so small, so tiny. And that's why people retire and they're miserable.
I think people are getting smarter about that. I think especially when our parents were coming up and stuff, that was like, I guess that's what you did. Like you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, and you do all this by the time you're 25, 26, and that's just what you do. You put money in a 401k, you save all your money, you don't spend a lot of it, you go on one vacation a year, and you do that until you're 75 or 70 years old. That's just what you do. But now I think more people are like the podcast we did on Is Okay to Be Selfish, like more people are starting to actually do that and think that way.
Yep.
Like you don't have to do that stuff.
I agree. And I think I was just looking, I want to see the range. Social Security doesn't kick in until
You're 50 something, right?
full benefits until you're 67.
Oh, I thought it was 58.
So a lot of people retire at 62 and they don't get full benefits until 67. So what else should be on people's mind when they are considering retiring or when they're thinking about retiring? And I think that is a question that people need to ask themselves and really run the numbers with, because to me, it's your lifestyle. You might be super happy with your job, but you might not ever be able to retire because of the way you live. And that will also affect your quality of life, your level of happiness, because knowing that you can't retire, I think will immediately impact how much you enjoy your job. Doesn't mean you have to retire, but knowing that you have the ability to changes. There's something about that changes. And if people's lifestyle, because that's what has to change when people retire. Most people can't afford to live the same way that they had been before they retire. They're not going to have the same income. It's just not. Now, there are exceptions to the rule here. If you're an investment guy and you've got a ton of residual income and passive income, then great. You can. That's why we talk about the importance of being wealthy versus being rich. But the lifestyle piece is what keeps people, I think, in this hamster wheel way too long. If your burn rate with cash is super high, then you only have one or two options, one of two. One, you continue to work to support your high burn rate lifestyle, or two, you change your lifestyle and you can stop working. Most people have a very difficult time. Again, I'm generalizing, but I think that you'd agree that this is a safe generalization. Most people that have a very high quality of life are not okay with and do not want to adjust that quality of life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like clothes, cars, food.
If you're used to driving a Lambo around, you're probably not going to be okay with driving an Explorer or a Civic. You know what I mean? So that's some personal things that those guys and girls have to figure out. But if you're working because you can't afford not to work, man, that's a dangerous. And here's the thing: I think that's very prevalent. I think a lot of people are going to their job that they hate because they can't afford not to.
Yeah,
that's
most people. Yeah.
They've created a lifestyle that requires them to work and earn a certain amount of money.
And the more people make, like say every year you get a raise at your job or whatever, then they just go ahead and spend it. So if I get a $1,000 raise every year, but I pick up another $500, $600, $700, $800 in bills because of something I wanted, I'm back at where I was. I'm just giving
a lot
that
of
away.
people make this mistake, and it's a perception problem. They look at, let's take me and you, and we'll throw some examples out. I make, let's say I make $100,000 a year. You make $1 million a year. I look at you and I'm like, man, I wish I was Phil, man. $1 million a year. Can you imagine what I could do with that money? How much money I could put away, how much money I could save, how much money I could pay off, whatever. But the reality is, I'm looking at this from 100K. Let's say out of that 100K that I make, I'm able to, have some spendings of somewhere around 30K that I can buy things with and support my lifestyle, whatever. I'm looking at that saying, man, 30K, I would have, you're talking, I don't know, $800,000, $900,000, but that's not how the world works. Mm-hmm. When you make $1 million, now all of a sudden you buy a nicer car, you buy a bigger house, you buy a nicer watch,
you go nicer places,
you eat at nicer restaurants, and pretty soon you're now able to spend the same amount of money. So let's say 30 for 100, that's 10, that's 300,000 that you'd be able to spend out of that $1 million. You and me are taking home the exact same amount of money. You're just spending it at a higher burn rate than I am. So people look at this and say, man, you make so much money. But most people, like you said, as their income increases, so do their expenses. And that's the problem. That's the rub. You buy, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Any single person out there that you're listening to this and you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, stop what you're doing, go to Amazon on your phone and buy the book. It's like, I don't know, $12, $15. One of the best books you ever read. And it talks about so many concepts, and he dumbs it down for people like me to understand, and it makes so much sense. He talks about assets and liabilities. An asset is anything that improves your return on investment. If I buy something, it's going to produce some type of return for me. And if it's a liability, it's going to cost me money. Okay, I purchase it and it gives me no return, and it costs me money. And people, the biggest mistake, and he talks about this, is people will think that their home is an asset. Your home is not an asset. Your home is a liability. And people want to argue that. There is no argument. If you want to argue it, read the book, and you are not smarter than Robert Kiyosaki. You're not. It's just the way it is. No. You're smarter than me. You're smarter than Philip, but you're not smarter than that guy. No. And he explains it in such a way that makes so much sense. And that's the issue is. Go ahead.
Well, I was talking to somebody, but maybe it was Morgan the other day about this. Is like, say you buy a $300,000 house, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, you get a loan, whatever. The bank, has a lien on that. So if you don't pay, they just take it from you. Mm-hmm. It's not really making you money or something unless you're subleasing it out on something. You got
people aren't doing that.
People at your house.
Yep.
But even once you pay that off, there's something called taxes. If you don't pay your taxes every year after everything's paid off, you still can get it taken from you. It's never truly yours.
Yep.
You can still lose it.
And that's why it's a liability. And here's, I'll jump ahead. 2008. What happened in 2008? The big the real estate bubble burst. You wanted to buy a home. It was a $500,000 home. You put 10% down. You paid $50,000. You owe $450,000 on that home. The market tanks and home price plummets, and now all of a sudden you owe $450,000 on a $375,000 home. Mm-hmm. That is a big problem. And oh, by the way, your 7-year adjusted rate is up, or your 5-year adjusted rate is up, and now the bank says, okay, wait a second, you owe me $450,000 on a $350,000 home. Okay, guess what? You're going to come with $160,000 to get yourself back to a 90-10 LTV loan-to-value rate. Huh, that's a big problem.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back to that, and we're going to talk about how to avoid that. But don't think for a second that buying a big old house is just a great investment. It's not. Now, can it be?
Yeah.
Sure. It can be right now. The market is, bananas.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Not to buy, to sell.
Yeah. and here's the thing. Yeah, you can sell your house for a ton of money, but you got to go live somewhere.
You got to buy another one.
You got to go buy another one. So it's a very rare thing where you can, there's a seller's market and a buyer's market. It's one or the other. If you're in a buyer's market, your house ain't worth much. If you're in a seller's market, you got to buy something that's worth.
Yeah. The only way that would work is if you had a house at, say, $300,000, but all of a sudden market's up and then you can sell it for $500,000 or whatever. You go down from what you used to live. You'd have to, if you plan on, like you said, traveling the world or going to live at a campground or just killing off the grid, something, okay, that's perfect. But you want to buy something else, and you're not going to want to go not as nice.
Yep. And what this does, the more liabilities that you buy, the more of that 8 to 5 hamster wheel you're going to experience. Because now all of a sudden, you've got car debt, you've got credit card debt, you've got home debt, and you've got a minimum amount of money that you owe on that every single month. And most people can't afford to pay anything but the minimum. And if you keep paying the minimum, you're going to have debt forever. And it's like it's the opposite of compounding. It's the compounding you don't want. It's paying the minimum and having those principles just keep going up or staying the same, and you're just knocking off the interest. And that is, you will find yourself working till 70 plus because you can't afford not to, because what the decisions that you made have put you on a path to have to work to pay these debts. The most dangerous person is someone who doesn't carry debt and isn't relying on a paycheck each month. The government doesn't want that.
No.
Okay. And look, I'm not going to, as I said before, I'm not going to get into a conspiracy theory because it's not a conspiracy theory. The government wants you to carry debt. Okay. That's just, they want you to be burdened by debt. So you have to go to work. You have to do and follow the rules that are supposedly out there for people.
Yeah.
And so here's how I think we can make some simple changes in our life to avoid being in a situation that we can't get out of, that if we want to retire, we can. And most people don't have that option.
No.
They wait until the last possible second because they need the money. And here's why. They've decided to buy things and use credit. So let's stop it. I say, if you can't afford to pay cash, don't buy it. You want you want a car? Cool. Pay cash for it. You think that's crazy? Okay, fine. Pay 80% of it or 75% of it. All right. A car, very rarely is ever going to be an asset.
No.
Ever. As soon as you drive that stupid thing off the lot, you've lost 15% of your money right there.
Yeah.
So, if you want to buy a car, cool. Start a fund. As soon as you get a new car, let's say you get a new car and you're like, man, in 4 or 5 years, I'm going to want a new car. Okay, cool. So put an account and start putting money in that account. Start funneling money in that account. Over 5 years, you put that thing, I don't know, $200 a month, $300 a month. It's going to be a substantial amount of money in 5 years.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool. I've got $30,000 or $40,000. Do the math. Maybe you set it out to say, okay, 75% is what I got to put down. Then do the math on what is 30,000 75% of. Okay, I can afford a $40,000 car. All right, that's my limit. Now, when you go to the dealership, they're not going to show you a $40,000 car.
No.
They're going to show you a $60,000 car, and you're going to convince yourself, well,
That's half of
that's
it.
half. I can be half, and before you know it, you walk out of there. It's not 60,000. It's 65,000. And now this is how it starts. Same thing. You want a watch, you want some clothes, you want whatever, then pay cash for it. Do not put in your credit card. And you want to buy a house or build a house? Cool. Instead of putting the minimum amount down, come up with a number. I think 50 to 55% is very reasonable. If you can't afford to pay 55% of that value of that house, then don't do it. Because what you're going to do is you're going to take, I don't know, you're going to take $70,000, $80,000, and you say, okay, what can this get me? And you're going to get the maximum size house for that.
$400,000.
And you're like, gosh, dang it. And here's the other thing. If you're, one of the things we did when we were building our house, I made sure that I said, we had amazing builders, Timmy and Westford. I said, hey man, here's my budget. Do not show me anything outside of my budget. Because what's going to happen? If you see something that costs more than you have, do you think you're going to like it?
Yeah.
There's a reason why you can't afford it.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome.
Yeah.
So that was something that worked really well for us. And it worked everywhere but the appliances for me. That what got me, I saw the old fridge.
Yeah.
And there was no way. It was that huge double door 48-inch fridge, 48-inch freezer.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, oh, you guys got a big family? I said, no, just 2 girls and my wife.
It's my fridge.
I said, but this is what I've always wanted. She's like, you've always wanted a fridge? I said, listen, lady, this is what I want.
It's kind of weird. But
yeah, it is. It is.
Weird.
But it's the happiest. It's the
I just want
happiest
the
part of my.
regular white fridge, top and the bottom.
It's crazy, right? I know. and that's why everybody's so different. But you're gonna make some concessions, and I think that as long as you have the left and right ladder limits, like, hey, yeah, I bought way too expensive a fridge, but if that's the only thing that we made a mistake on, or I did, then we're not doing it. We're doing okay, But the problem is people can't stay in that lane. Once they start dabbling in that, oh man, so this is what a $200 dinner for 2 people tastes like. I like that. What if we just did this twice a month?
Yeah.
And
it's
then
$400 a month.
Well, wait a second. Well, man, everybody that comes to this restaurant, they drive really nice cars. I kind of love the way that Jaguar looks. Mm-hmm. I think we could finance it. It's 0% financing. It's $98,000. It's basically free money, right? It's nothing. There's 0% interest. They're giving it away.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're charging $96,000 for it.
Yeah. And they made it for $22,000.
Yeah. So, I think that those are the pitfalls, and if you don't really put things in place, and I think, the first thing that people can look at is cars and homes. Those are the big ones. Those are the biggest detractors of your wealth, and that's statistically proven. Cars, homes, That is what will steal your wealth from you. And so if you can put some things in place to say, you know what, I don't need a $600,000 house. I'm going to go find a $400,000 house. And if that means there aren't available right now, then yes, I hate renting, but I'm going to rent for 12 or 18 months. And then I'm going to find that house at $600,000 and it's now going to be worth $480,000. And you didn't pay $120,000 in rent for 18 months. Yeah. So you're coming out on top. But you know why that doesn't work?
Because people want it now.
People want it now. They want it now. Stop looking at things that you can't afford but want to afford, and you talk yourself into it. Boats. Look, man, you want a boat? I get it. Cool. Go. You're not going to use as much as you think.
Nope.
If you get a boat, guess what?
It's more hassle than people think.
Yeah.
I've been with my buddies on it, and they do a lot of work to get that thing out on the water.
And it's cool, man.
Cleaning it, fueling it. People are like, hey, I'll give you $10 in gas. And you're like, well, that's good. That'll crank it up.
Cool.
And then
where you store it.
Yeah, exactly. Either you got to make a spot at the house, a slip.
You trailering it?
Time.
What are you pulling it with?
Oh, man, I got a car. I got to get a truck now.
So now that boat that cost you $20,000, you had to buy a $70,000 truck, $8,000 trailer, and every time you use it, it's a couple $100 in gas, a couple $100 to clean it. Oh, it's $600 a month.
Inspection, taxes.
So I'm not saying you can't have toys. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is
there's more to
wait
it.
to buy a boat until you can pay cash for it, and until you've done the math and say, okay, here's what it's going to cost for me to store it. Here's what's going to cost for me to have a membership at the yacht club or whatever I got to have, and here's how I'm going to get it from place to place. If you answer all that and it's cost you $50,000, cool. Do the math like I taught you. 75%, 80%. You pay $42,000, cool. Now you got a $8,000 little debt, and then you just start chipping away. Before you buy anything, maybe make it a little rule. Before I buy a liability, I have to cancel out a liability. Why not play that game?
Yeah.
You say, okay, cool. I owe $4,000 on my motorcycle. Boom. Before I buy anything else, I got to get rid of that $4,000, and then I can buy something else. But the biggest thing is you just got to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, then retirement's going to come and you're not going to be ready, and you're not going to have a plan, and you're going to run out of money, or you're going to be miserable, or whatever else. But I think that there's more that goes into if you're already looking forward to retirement, you've made a couple mistakes leading up to that point that you need to address before you get to the point where you retire.
Yeah.
So, Philip and I are probably, 20 years from wanting to hang things up, but I love what I do. I love what I do. And that's why for me, retirement is working under the conditions that I set. And I almost feel like I'm in that situation now. I'm certainly not retired, but I feel like everything I'm doing now is what I want to be doing. I'm working the amount of hours I want to work. I'm here because I want to be here, not because I have to be here. If I could find someone to run our media company a little bit more qualified than Philip, retirement can come a little earlier. But until that happens,
that don't make any sense.
I'm kind of stuck here with him. So, what else?
That upsets me.
Really?
Yeah.
Emotionally? Spiritually?
Emotionally.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Did we leave anything else? Any closing thoughts? Any parting ideas?
No.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I love thinking about long-term, how to set yourself on a path that will allow you to do things that the way you want them to be done and not have to rely on somebody else. I think anytime you rely on somebody else for something, whether that's a living paycheck to paycheck, you are really putting yourself in a tough spot for when something goes wrong or you get sick or whatever. You start changing your time for money, and now you're not able to do that anymore. And now all of a sudden that lifestyle that you live with that high burn rate is going to catch you. And when it catches you, man, you will not last long. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, this is the Built by Vitality podcast. Thanks for listening.